The February air in Harlem bit through Ethan Caldwell's wool coat as he stood outside La Bella Vita, a cozy restaurant nestled among the vibrant brownstones of West 125th Street. At 32, Ethan, a white American with a lean build and sandy hair, felt the chill more keenly than usual, his pale skin prickling under the navy blazer his sister Sarah had insisted he wear. The street hummed with life. Couples strolled hand in hand, their laughter mingling with the distant saxophone notes from a nearby jazz club, a reminder of Harlem's rich cultural pulse. Valentine's Day decorations adorned shop windows, heart-shaped balloons, red streamers, and neon signs proclaiming love in every font. To Ethan, they felt like silent judges, scrutinizing his solitude. Ethan's breath formed fleeting clouds in the cold, much like his expectations for the evening. A software engineer at a tech startup in Midtown, he had mastered the art of crafting elegant code to solve complex problems, his mind a labyrinth of algorithms and logic. But romance? That was a bug he couldn't debug. At 32, he had a string of failed dates behind him, awkward silences, mismatched expectations, and a lingering sense that he was better suited to screens than hearts. Harlem's energy, with its blend of history and modernity, only amplified his unease. The neighborhood's vibrant murals and bustling street vendors starkly contrasted with his orderly minimalist life in Soho, where his apartment's white walls and sparse furniture mirrored his guarded heart. His phone buzzed in his pocket, the screen glowing with a text from Maya Thompson, the 30-year-old Black American woman he met tonight. Running 5 minutes late. Thanks for waiting. Ethan adjusted his blazer, smoothing the lapels as Sarah's voice echoed in his mind. Be yourself, Ethan, but with a bit of flair, she'd teased, her hazel eyes sparkling with mischief. At 29, Sarah was his biggest cheerleader, convinced that this blind date would break his romantic losing streak. She'd met Maya through a mutual friend at a Harlem book club, describing her as kind, smart, and way out of your league. Ethan had laughed, but now, standing alone, he wasn't so sure. He glanced at his reflection in La Bella Vita's window, his pale blue eyes betraying a flicker of doubt. The restaurant's amber lighting spilled onto the sidewalk, casting warm pools that beckoned couples inside. After scouring Yelp reviews and Harlem food blogs, Ethan chose this place carefully. It was intimate, but not stifling, sophisticated yet grounded, with a menu boasting soul food fusion that honored the neighborhood's heritage. He'd reserved a table for 7:30, hoping the timing would allow for a relaxed evening before the Valentine's Day rush. The hostess had promised a corner booth with a view of the street, perfect for watching Harlem's lively parade of dog walkers, street performers, and families. Ethan shifted his weight, his polished loafers scuffing the pavement. He wasn't used to this. The anticipation, the vulnerability. His work at the startup was predictable, lines of code, debug sessions, and the satisfaction of a system running smoothly. But he felt exposed here, in the heart of Harlem, surrounded by the rhythm of a neighborhood that thrived on community and resilience. The couples, streaming past, seemed to belong to a world he couldn't access, their easy intimacy a language he hadn't learned. He rechecked his phone. 7:28. 2 minutes to go. Sarah's words replayed. Maya's special, Ethan. She's got this warmth, like she carries the sun in her smile. Ethan had rolled his eyes at the poetic exaggeration, but the image stuck. He imagined Maya, 30, with the kind of presence that could light up a room, her black skin radiant against the winter gloom, her laughter blending with Harlem's jazz. He didn't know much about her, only that she was a pediatric nurse, loved books, and had a knack for making people feel seen. Sarah had been vague about the rest, insisting he discover her for himself. The street pulsed with life. A vendor selling roasted peanuts, A group of teens breakdancing to a boombox, and an elderly couple sharing a shawl as they shuffled toward the Apollo Theater. Ethan envied their ease, their sense of belonging. Harlem wasn't just a backdrop. It was a character in its own right, with its history of jazz legends, civil rights heroes, and everyday resilience. Ethan, a transplant from suburban Connecticut, felt like an outsider. His whiteness was a quiet contrast to the neighborhood's vibrant diversity. Yet something about this place, the murals celebrating Black excellence, the rhythm of conversation, drew him in, made him want to be part of its story. His phone vibrated again, this time with a call from Sarah. "You nervous?" she asked without preamble. "A little," Ethan admitted, his voice low. "What if I screw this up?" "You won't. Just listen to her, Ethan. Listen. And don't talk about code unless she asks." He chuckled, the tension easing slightly. "No promises." "You've got this," Sarah said. "Maya's worth it. Trust me." As he hung up, Ethan glanced at the restaurant's entrance, his heart picking up speed. The door swung open, and a woman stepped out, her dark skin catching the light, her braided hair adorned with a subtle gold clip. She scanned the sidewalk, her warm brown eyes landing on him. Beside her was a small boy, maybe 5, his skin a rich brown like his mother's, his hand tucked securely in hers. Ethan's breath caught. This had to be Maya Thompson, 30, but Sarah hadn't mentioned a child. The boy looked up at the restaurant with wide, curious eyes, and Ethan felt the evening shift before it had even begun. "Maya?" he ventured, stepping forward, his pale face flushing slightly. Her smile was hesitant but warm, like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Ethan? I'm so sorry. My sitter canceled at the last minute. This is Noah, my son. He's 5. Noah tilted his head, studying Ethan with a seriousness beyond his years. "Mama says you fix computers. Do you make games?" Ethan blinked, then smiled, his nerves softening. "Sometimes." "You like games?" Noah nodded, a gap-toothed grin breaking through. Maya's eyes held an apology and a challenge, as if testing whether Ethan would stay or bolt. Harlem's streetlights flickered, casting their shadows on the pavement, and Ethan made a choice. "Let's go in," he said, holding the door. "I'm starving, and I bet Noah is too." Ethan held the door of La Bella Vita open, the warm hum of jazz and the clinking of wine glasses spilling onto the Harlem sidewalk. Maya stepped inside, her braided hair catching the amber glow of the restaurant's pendant lights, her posture a mix of confidence and caution. Noah, clutching her hand, scanned the room with wide eyes, his sneakers squeaking on the polished wood floor. Ethan's mind raced. Sarah's matchmaking hadn't included a 5-year-old. The Valentine's Day date he'd envisioned, all candlelit glances and witty banter, dissolved like sugar in the February rain. Yet, as Maya's gaze met his, apologetic but steady, he felt a pull to stay, to see where this detour might lead. The hostess led them to a corner booth, its leather seats worn soft by countless Harlem evenings. Ethan had chosen this spot for its view of the street, where passers-by moved like characters in a play, vendors hawking sweet potatoes, couples swaying to a distant busker saxophone. His attention was now on Noah, who clambered onto the seat, his small hands gripping the table's edge. "Mama, can I have juice?" he asked, his voice bright but tinged with the shyness of meeting a stranger. Maya nodded, smoothing his jacket with a tenderness that spoke of countless such moments. "Apple, please," she told the waiter, her eyes flicking to Ethan. "I'm so sorry about this. I tried calling, but my phone died, and I didn't want to cancel." Ethan waved off her apology, his smile more genuine than he expected. "It's fine. I'm glad you're here." He meant it. though his stomach churned with uncertainty. Romance was hard enough without a child in the mix, but Noah's curious gaze, fixed on him now, held an unexpected charm. "So, Noah," Ethan said, leaning forward, "what kind of games do you like?" Noah's face lit up, a gap-toothed grin breaking through. "Space ones! Like where you fly rockets and fight aliens." Ethan chuckled, the boy's enthusiasm slicing through his nerves. "I've made a few of those. Ever play Galaxy Quest?" Noah shook his head, but his eyes widened, as if Ethan had just admitted to being an astronaut. Maya watched the exchange, her shoulders relaxing slightly. She wore a simple burgundy dress, its elegance understated, fitting the restaurant's vibe, sophisticated but rooted in Harlem's soulful warmth. The menu boasted fried catfish with collard greens and cornbread-crusted chicken, a nod to the neighborhood's culinary heritage. Ethan, who'd grown up on Connecticut casseroles, was thrilled at the unfamiliar flavors. "What's good here?" he asked Maya, hoping to draw her out. She glanced at the menu, her fingers tracing the edge. "The shrimp and grits are excellent. Noah loves the chicken fingers, though he'll probably drown them in ketchup." Noah nodded vigorously, already reaching for the crayons the waiter had left. As they ordered, shrimp and grits for Maya, pasta for Ethan, and chicken fingers for Noah, Ethan felt the evening shift. With its scripted charm and predictable rhythm, this wasn't the date he'd planned. Instead, it was raw, unpolished, like the street poetry he'd heard at a Harlem open mic. Noah colored a paper placemat, drawing a lopsided rocket ship, while Maya sipped water, her eyes darting between her son and Ethan. She said, "You're handling this better than most would," her voice low, almost testing. Ethan shrugged, his blazer feeling less like armor now. "I'm reasonable with surprises. Coding's all about adapting when things don't go to plan." Noah looked up, crayon poised. "Do you make computers talk?" Ethan laughed, charmed by the boy's directness. "Sort of. I tell them what to do, and sometimes they listen." Noah giggled, echoing the restaurant's hum, drawing smiles from nearby tables. Maya's expression softened, but there was a shadow in her eyes, a guardedness Ethan couldn't quite read. "Noah's not usually this chatty with new people," she said, her tone a mix of pride and wariness. "He must like you." Ethan felt a warmth spread through him, unexpected and disarming. "I want him too," he said, and the words felt truer than he'd anticipated. The waiter returned with Noah's juice, and Ethan noticed Maya's subtle adjustments, moving the glass out of Noah's reach to avoid spills, folding his napkin. Her movements were a choreography of care, honed by years of solo parenting in a city that demanded resilience. Harlem's vibrancy outside, streetlights flickering, a gospel choir rehearsing across the street, seemed to mirror her strength and solitude. Ethan wanted to ask about her life and the story behind Noah's presence, but the moment's weight held him back. Instead, he turned to Noah. "What's that rocket ship doing?" Noah launched into a tale of interstellar battles, his hands waving, ketchup smudging his fingers. Maya's laugh broke the tension, and a rich, unguarded sound tightened Ethan's chest. "He's got a whole universe in his head," she said, her eyes lingering on her son. Ethan nodded, sensing the depth of their bond and the way it shaped every choice she made. The restaurant's jazz shifted to a slower tune, Ella Fitzgerald's voice weaving through the air, and Ethan felt a spark of possibility. This wasn't the Valentine's Day he'd imagined, but it was real, messy, alive. "Let's make a deal," he said, meeting Maya's gaze. "Tell me about your favorite Harlem spot, and I'll tell you about the worst bug I ever fixed." Her smile widened, a challenge accepted, and Ethan knew he wasn't walking away. The interior of La Bella Vita buzzed with the warmth of Harlem's evening crowd, the clink of glasses, and the low hum of a jazz quartet weaving through the air. Ethan sat across from Maya in the corner booth, the leather creaking softly as Noah shifted beside her, his crayons scratching out a rocket ship on the placemat. The restaurant's amber lights cast a golden glow over Maya's burgundy dress, highlighting the subtle tension in her shoulders as she cut Noah's chicken fingers into bite-sized pieces. Ethan watched, fascinated by her quiet precision, a dance of care that spoke of years navigating motherhood alone. The Valentine's Day date he'd planned, a polished, romantic evening, had morphed into something else entirely. But the warmth of this moment, raw and unscripted, felt like a gift. Engrossed in his drawing, Noah looked up with a grin, ketchup smudging his cheek. "Ethan, do you think aliens have spaceships with lasers?" His question, delivered with the earnestness of a 5-year-old, broke the quiet, pulling Ethan into his orbit. "Lasers," Ethan replied, leaning forward, his navy blazer slightly rumpled now. "But I bet they've got cloaking devices too, so we'd never see them coming." Noah's eyes widened, his crayon pausing mid-stroke. "Cool. Can you make a game with that?" Maya's soft and melodic laugh cut through the exchange, her guarded expression softening. "He's got you designing games already," she said, her voice warm but tinged with surprise. Ethan grinned, the boy's energy infectious. "I'm up for the challenge. What else do aliens need, Noah?" The boy launched into a detailed description of his imaginary galaxy, planets with purple oceans, robots that guarded treasure, his hands waving as he mimicked laser sounds. Ethan listened, genuinely captivated, his usual reserve melting under Noah's unfiltered enthusiasm. The restaurant's atmosphere, with its soulful decor and the faint scent of cornbread, grounded the moment in Harlem's rich tapestry. Couples at nearby tables smiled at Noah's chatter, their glances a reminder of the community's warmth, starkly contrasting with Ethan's solitary life downtown. Maya sipped her water, her eyes darting between Noah and Ethan, as if assessing whether this connection was safe. "He's not usually this talkative with strangers," she said, tucking a braid behind her ear. "You've got a knack for drawing him out." Ethan shrugged, his pale blue eyes meeting hers. "He makes it easy. He's got a whole world in his head." Maya's smile deepened, but a flicker of caution lingered, like a shadow cast by past disappointments. Ethan sensed a story she wasn't ready to share, and he didn't push. Instead, he turned to Noah, who was now stacking sugar packets into a makeshift tower. "That's a solid base," Ethan said. "Ever think about engineering?" Noah tilted his head, considering. "Maybe. I like building stuff. Mama says I'm good at it." Maya nodded, her hand resting lightly on Noah's shoulder. "Last week, he built a fort out of couch cushions that nearly took over the living room." Her tone was light, but Ethan caught the pride beneath it, the kind that came from countless small victories in a life shaped by resilience. He thought of his childhood, marked by his father's absence, and felt a quiet kinship with Noah's need for stability. "Sounds like a masterpiece," Ethan said, and Noah beamed, offering him a sugar packet to add to the tower. The waiter arrived with their food, shrimp and grits for Maya, pasta with marinara for Ethan, and a plate of golden chicken fingers for Noah, accompanied by a small mountain of ketchup. Maya arranged Noah's plate with practiced care, moving the vegetables so they wouldn't touch, her movements a silent language of love. Ethan watched, struck by its intimacy, which was so different from the sterile precision of his coding world. Harlem's street sounds, car horns, laughter, a distant gospel choir, filtered through the window, anchoring them in a place that thrived on connection. "So," Ethan said, twirling his fork, "tell me about your favorite Harlem spot." "You promised." Maya's eyes lit up, a spark of joy breaking through her caution. The Schomburg Center, she said without hesitation. It's a library, but it's more like a heartbeat for Black history. I take Noah there for story time, and he loves the exhibits. Her voice was reverent, making Ethan lean in, eager to know more. What's special about it? He asked. Maya described the center's archives and celebration of African diaspora culture. Her words paint a picture of a place where history and hope intertwine. Ethan, who'd spent his life in logic-driven spaces, felt a pull toward this world of stories and community. Noah, now dipping his chicken fingers with gusto, chimed in. They have books about astronauts. I want to be one someday. Ethan nodded, impressed. You'd be a great astronaut. You've already got the imagination for it. The boy's grin widened, and Maya's gaze softened, her fingers relaxing around her glass. The jazz quartet shifted to a slower tune, Billie Holiday's voice weaving through the air, and Ethan felt the evening settle into a rhythm he hadn't expected. This wasn't the romantic dinner of his imagination, but it was alive, real, like the pulse of Harlem outside. What about you? Maya asked, her tone curious now. What's your favorite spot? Ethan hesitated, then smiled. Honestly, I'm still finding mine. But tonight, this booth's not bad. Maya laughed, a sound that warmed him more than the restaurant's glow. After finishing his drawing, Noah held it up, a rocket soaring past stars, labeled Noah's ship. For you, he said, pushing it toward Ethan. The trusting yet straightforward gesture caught Ethan off guard, his throat tightening. Thanks, buddy, he said, tucking the drawing into his pocket. As they ate, the conversation flowed. Harlem's hidden gems, Ethan's coding mishaps, Noah's dreams of space. Ethan realized he wasn't just on a date, but stepping into something bigger that might get him. The jazz quartet in La Bella Vita softened to a gentle hum, its notes mingling with the clatter of plates and the murmur of Harlem's evening diners. Ethan sat across from Maya, his pasta half-eaten, his attention fixed on her as she poured Noah another small cup of apple juice. The restaurant's warm lighting danced across her burgundy dress, highlighting the careful way she moved, every gesture deliberate, a testament to the life she'd built for her son. Engrossed in his chicken fingers, Noah dipped them with precision into a pool of ketchup, his rocket ship drawing now tucked beside Ethan's plate. The unexpected presence of Noah had shifted the evening's rhythm, but Ethan found himself drawn deeper into their world, a world shaped by Maya's strength and Harlem's vibrant heartbeat. Maya leaned back, her braided hair catching the light as she watched Noah with a quiet pride. Ethan sensed an opening, a chance to learn more about the woman who'd turned his carefully planned Valentine's Day date into something far more real. So, he said, twirling his fork, you mentioned the Schomburg Center. What else makes Harlem home for you? Maya's eyes lit up, but there was a guarded edge to her smile, as if she were weighing how much to share. Harlem's got soul, she said, her voice low and rich. It's the people, neighbors who check on you, street festivals that feel like family reunions. I take Noah to the Harlem Week markets in summer, where he eats too many snow cones and dances to whatever band's playing. Ethan nodded, picturing the scene. Vendors with bright awnings, drummers filling the air with rhythm, Noah's laughter blending with the crowd. His life in Soho, with its sleek coffee shops and silent apartments, felt sterile by comparison. Sounds like a place that sticks with you, he said. Maya's smile deepened, but her gaze drifted to Noah, who was now stacking his fries into a makeshift fort. It does. I moved here after things changed. It's where I found my footing. Her words carried a weight, a story she wasn't ready to tell, but Ethan caught the hint of resilience beneath them. He took a sip of water, choosing his next question carefully. You're a nurse. That must be intense, especially with kids. Maya's expression softened, her fingers tracing the edge of her glass. Pediatric nursing at Harlem Hospital. I work with kids who've got chronic conditions. Leukemia, diabetes, you name it. It's heavy, but they're fighters. They teach me more than I teach them. Her voice held a quiet reverence, and Ethan saw the depth of her compassion, a strength forged in late-night shifts and small victories. Like this one girl. Amara, Maya continued, her eyes distant. She's 8 and has been in and out of the hospital for years. She gave me a drawing once and said it was me as a superhero. I keep it on my fridge. Noah looked up, his fries forgotten. Mama's a superhero, he declared, his gap-toothed grin wide. Maya laughed, ruffling his hair. Only on good days, sweetheart. Ethan smiled, the image of Maya as a caped hero fitting perfectly with the woman before him. But he sensed a shadow in her story, a piece she held back. How'd you end up in nursing? He asked, hoping to draw her out. Maya's gaze flickered, her fingers tightening briefly around her napkin. I always wanted to help people, but I committed after Noah's dad left. Jamal, that's his name. I was 25, alone with a toddler, living in a tiny apartment in the Bronx. Harlem was a fresh start. Ethan leaned forward, his elbows on the table, the restaurant's jazz fading into the background. That sounds like a lot to carry. Maya shrugged, but her eyes betrayed the effort it had taken. It was. Jamal was a musician, always chasing the next gig. He said fatherhood wasn't his rhythm, not then. Left for LA when Noah was 18 months old. I had to figure it out. Bills, daycare, night classes for my nursing degree. Harlem's community saved me. Mrs. Johnson, my neighbor, watched Noah when I worked doubles. The church down the street had a food pantry when things got tight. This place, it holds you up. Her words painted a picture of survival, of a woman who'd built a life from scratch in a neighborhood that demanded grit and gave back love. Ethan thought of his childhood, marked by his father's absence after a bitter divorce, the silence of a house where promises were rarely kept. I get that, he said, his voice soft. My dad wasn't around much either. Left when I was 7. I spent a lot of time wishing someone would show up, you know? Maya's gaze met his, a spark of understanding passing between them. For a moment, the bustle of La Bella Vita, servers weaving through tables, the clink of wine glasses, faded, leaving just the two of them and the boy who'd brought them together. Noah, sensing the shift, held up his fry fork. Look, Ethan, it's a castle for astronauts. Ethan grinned, leaning closer to inspect the creation. That's epic, Noah. Needs a launch pad, though. Noah nodded thoughtfully, rearranging his fries with the focus of an engineer. Maya watched, her smile tinged with something Ethan couldn't quite name. Perhaps gratitude or the cautious hope of someone who'd learned to guard her heart. You're good with him, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Not everyone would stick around for this. Ethan met her eyes, his heart steady despite the uncertainty of the night. I'm exactly where I want to be. The jazz quartet struck up a lively tune, and the restaurant seemed to pulse with Harlem's energy, its windows framing the street where couples danced under streetlights. Ethan felt the moment's weight, realizing that this evening wasn't just a date. It was an invitation to something more profound, messier and real than he'd ever known. Noah offered him a fry, his small hand sticky with ketchup, and Ethan took it, laughing. To astronauts and castles, he said, raising the fry like a toast. Maya's laughter joined his, a sound that felt like Harlem itself, vibrant, resilient, home. The Saturday sun bathed Marcus Garvey Park in a golden glow, Harlem's heartbeat pulsing through children's laughter and the rhythm of a street drummer nearby. Ethan arrived at the park's entrance, a box of magnetic building tiles tucked under his arm. His navy blazer swapped for a casual sweater that felt more like him. The air carried the scent of roasted chestnuts from a vendor's cart, mingling with the crisp February breeze. Maya and Noah were already there, near their usual bench under a sprawling oak, its branches framing the skyline of brownstones and murals. Noah spotted Ethan first, his gap-toothed grin breaking wide as he waved, his small sneakers kicking up dust. Maya's smile was softer, her burgundy scarf a splash of color against her coat, but her eyes held a cautious warmth, as if testing the permanence of Ethan's presence. Ethan had made these park outings a ritual since that unexpected Valentine's Day dinner 3 weeks ago. Each Saturday, he arrived with coffee for Maya, 2 sugars, splash of cream, and a hot chocolate for Noah, along with something to spark the boy's imagination. Today's magnetic tiles offering was a calculated risk, chosen after a late-night scroll through Harlem's local toy shop reviews. "For you, Noah," Ethan said, setting the box down. Noah's eyes lit up, his fingers already tearing at the packaging. "Can we build a rocket ship?" he asked, his voice bubbling with excitement. Ethan knelt beside him, the grass cool under his knees. "A rocket ship castle, maybe. What do you think?" Noah nodded, already sorting tiles by color with a precision that reminded Ethan of his coding habits. Maya settled on the bench, her thermos of coffee steaming in the chilly air. She watched Noah with a quiet intensity, her braided hair tucked under her scarf, her posture relaxed but alert. "You're spoiling him," she said, her tone light, but laced with something more profound. Gratitude, perhaps, or the weight of trusting someone new. Ethan grinned, snapping a tile into place as Noah directed. "I'm investing in future astronauts. Gotta start somewhere." Noah giggled, stacking tiles into a wobbly tower. "This is the launch pad," he declared, his imagination transforming the park into a cosmic playground. Ethan followed his lead, marveling at the boy's ability to create worlds from plastic and dreams. Harlem's park was alive with community, families picnicking, teens playing basketball, and an older man feeding pigeons while humming a jazz tune. Ethan felt the neighborhood's pulse, blending history and hope, drawing him into a world far from his sterile Soho apartment. He glanced at Maya, watching Noah with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Ethan said he has a knack for building and hopes to draw her out. Maya nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of her thermos. "Always has. Last month, he turned my couch cushions into a spaceship. Took me an hour to get the living room back." Her laugh was soft, but Ethan caught a flicker of fatigue, a reminder of the life she carried alone. He hesitated, then took a chance. "You've done a fantastic job with him. It's not easy, doing it on your own." Maya's gaze met his, searching, as if weighing whether to open up. "It's not," she admitted, her voice low. "After Jamal left, it was just me and Noah. Harlem's been my anchor. Neighbors like Mrs. Johnson, the church on 126th Street. But some days, it's like I'm holding everything together with tape and prayers." Ethan nodded, his memories surfacing, his father's empty promises, the quiet ache of a childhood spent waiting. "I get that," he said. "My dad checked out when I was a kid, left me wishing someone would show up, you know? Stay." Maya's eyes softened, a bridge forming between them. "Noah's got that wish too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He asks about his dad sometimes, and why he's not here. I don't know what to say." Ethan looked at Noah, who was now explaining the rocket ship's control room with animated gestures, his hands waving like a conductor's. Ethan said, "You tell him he's enough," the words coming from a place he hadn't touched in years. "And you show him every day." Maya's smile was slight, but real, a crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. Noah ran over, holding up a lopsided structure of tiles. "Ethan, look! It's got a tower for the astronauts to sleep in." Ethan inspected it with mock seriousness, his fingers brushing the tiles. "Solid work, buddy. Needs a satellite dish, though." Noah scampered back to the pile, his enthusiasm undimmed. Maya watched, her expression a mix of pride and something else, perhaps hope tempered by fear. "He trusts you," she said, her voice carrying a warning. "That's a big deal for him." Ethan met her gaze, his heart steady despite the weight of her words. "It's a big deal for me, too." The park's sounds, children's laughter, a distant saxophone, wove around them. Harlem's vibrancy a backdrop to their quiet moment. Ethan felt the stakes rising, the realization that these Saturdays were more than just outings. They were small but significant promises to a boy who needed someone to stay, and a woman who'd learned to expect the opposite. "Can we build a moon base next?" Noah asked, his eyes bright with possibility. Ethan nodded, kneeling beside him again. "Moon base it is." Maya's gaze lingered on them as they worked, and Ethan knew this was no longer just about a date. It was about building something that might last, if he could find the courage to keep showing up. The late February sun dipped low over Marcus Garvey Park, casting long shadows across the grass where Ethan and Noah knelt, their magnetic tile creation now a sprawling rocket ship castle. Harlem's weekend energy pulsed around them. Kids chasing each other near the playground, a street vendor's call for hot pretzels, the faint thrum of a bass line from a nearby block party. Ethan snapped a tile into place, following Noah's precise instructions for a laser defense tower, his sweater sleeves rolled up as he grinned at the boys' enthusiasm. Maya sat on their usual bench, her burgundy scarf loose around her neck, a thermos of coffee cradled in her hands. Her smile, usually warm, was strained today, her eyes flickering to her phone every few seconds as if expecting bad news. Ethan noticed the change. Her fingers tightened around the thermos, and her laughter was quieter than usual. "Everything okay?" he asked, keeping his tone light as Noah stacked tiles nearby. Maya hesitated, her braided hair catching the fading light as she glanced at her son, then back at Ethan. "It's Jamal," she said, her voice low, almost swallowed by the park's hum. "Noah's dad. He's been texting all week and says he's coming to New York next month, wants to see Noah." The words landed like a stone in Ethan's chest, stirring a mix of protectiveness and unease. He'd grown used to their Saturday rhythm, the easy joy of building with Noah, the quiet connection with Maya. Now, an unknown variable threatened to disrupt it. Noah, oblivious, held up his structure. "Ethan, look! The lasers protect the astronauts." Ethan forced a smile, ruffling Noah's hair. "Awesome, buddy. Those aliens don't stand a chance." But his eyes stayed on Maya, who stared at the ground, her jaw tight. "What's he like?" Ethan asked, settling beside her on the bench, careful to keep his voice steady. Maya's fingers traced the thermos's rim, her gaze distant. "Jamal's a musician and guitarist, always chasing the next big break. He's charming, and makes you feel like you're the only one in the room. But he's impulsive. He left for LA when Noah was a baby, and said he wasn't ready to be tied down. I haven't heard from him in years, not since a brief visit when Noah was 3. Ethan nodded, his mind racing. He thought of his father, whose promises of weekend visits had dwindled to nothing, leaving a void Ethan still felt. "What's changed for him now?" he asked. Maya's laugh was sharp, bitter. "Who knows? Maybe his latest gig fell through, or he's feeling nostalgic. He says he's ready to be a dad, but I've heard that before." She glanced at Noah, who was now adding a control room to his castle. his small hands moving with purpose. I can't let him hurt Noah again. The last time he visited, Noah waited by the window for days, asking when Daddy would return. Her voice cracked, and Ethan felt a surge of protectiveness for Noah and Maya, who'd carried this pain alone. Harlem's vibrancy seemed to fade, and the street drummer's rhythm was now a distant echo. Ethan leaned closer, his shoulder brushing hers. "You're not alone this time," he said, the words a quiet vow. Maya's eyes met his, searching, as if testing the weight of his promise. "I want to believe that," she said, her voice soft but heavy with doubt. "But Noah's my world. If Jamal comes back and leaves again, it'll break him. I don't know if I can risk that." Ethan understood her fear, the instinct to shield Noah from a father who'd already proven unreliable. But he also saw the spark of hope in her eyes, the part of her that wanted to trust, not just Jamal, but him. Noah ran over, clutching a tile. "Mama, can Ethan come to the park next week too?" His question was innocent, but hung in the air, amplifying the stakes. Maya's smile was forced, her hand resting on Noah's shoulder. "We'll see, sweetheart." Ethan caught the hesitation, the way her gaze flickered to her phone again, where another text from Jamal glowed on the screen. "I'll be here," Ethan said, his voice firm, directed at both of them. Noah grinned, scampering back to his tiles, but Maya's expression remained guarded, her fingers tightening around her phone. The park's energy shifted as a group of teens started a dance battle nearby, their moves drawing cheers from onlookers. Harlem's resilient, communal spirit felt like a backdrop to the tension between them. Ethan wanted to say more and promise he'd stay no matter what Jamal did, but his words felt inadequate. Instead, he joined Noah on the grass, helping him add a moon base to their structure. Noah explained that this was where the astronauts planned their missions, his voice full of conviction. Ethan nodded, his heart heavy with the knowledge that Noah's trust was fragile, shaped by a father who'd left too soon. As the sun sank lower, casting the park in a warm orange glow, Maya's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, her face tightening, then set it face down on the bench. "He's serious this time," she murmured, almost to herself. "Says he's booked a flight." Ethan's stomach twisted, but he focused on Noah, who was now narrating a story about alien invaders. "Whatever happens," Ethan said, meeting Maya's eyes, "we'll figure it out together." Her nod was slight but enough, a fragile bridge between them, built on hope and fear in equal measure. Harlem's evening lights flickered on, illuminating the uncertain but undeniably alive path ahead. The March air carried the hint of spring as Ethan stood at the window of Maya's Harlem apartment, the street below alive with the rhythm of a Saturday morning. Vendors set up stalls for a farmer's market, their voices mingling with the pulse of a hip-hop beat from a nearby speaker. Inside, the cozy living room was a mosaic of Noah's world. Crayon drawings pinned to the fridge, a basket of toy spaceships, and the magnetic tiles Ethan had gifted, neatly stacked by the couch. Maya paced near the door, her burgundy scarf draped over a chair, her braided hair pulled into a tight bun that mirrored her tension. Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, clutching a stuffed lion, his eyes bright with anticipation. Jamal, Noah's father, was due any minute, his arrival a storm cloud threatening the fragile harmony Ethan had found with Maya and Noah. Ethan's sweater felt too warm as he watched Maya check her phone, her fingers trembling slightly. "He's early," she muttered, glancing at the clock. 3:30 p.m., 30 minutes before their agreed-upon meeting time in the lobby. The intercom buzzed, and Jamal's voice crackled through, warm and easy, like a song you couldn't help but hum. "Maya, can we come up? Noah wants to show me his room." Maya closed her eyes, steadying herself, then pressed the button. "Come on up." She turned to Ethan, her expression a mix of resolve and conflict. "You don't have to stay for this," she said, her voice low. Ethan took her hand, his grip firm. "I'm not going anywhere." The knock came too soon, sharp and real. Maya opened the door, and Jamal stood tall and lean, his charisma filling the room like the jazz spilling from a nearby club. His dreadlocks were tied back, his smile a mirror of Noah's, disarming and bright. "Daddy!" Noah launched himself into Jamal's arms, his joy unfiltered, a child's trust untouched by the years of absence. Jamal spun him around, laughing, his leather jacket creaking. Ethan watched from the couch, his chest tight, a mix of protectiveness and unease stirring within him. Jamal's gaze landed on him, the smile tightening just enough to betray a guarded edge. "You must be Ethan," he said, extending a hand, his tone polite but probing. Ethan stood, shaking Jamal's hand, feeling the subtle challenge in his grip. "Good to meet you," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the undercurrent of tension. Noah tugged at Jamal's sleeve, oblivious to the adult's unspoken dynamics. "See my fort. Ethan helped me build it." Jamal followed Noah down the hallway, his eyes scanning the apartment, the photos on the fridge, some including Ethan, the cozy chaos of a life built without him. Ethan stayed behind, giving Maya space, but her silence spoke volumes. "He looks the same," she whispered, sinking onto the couch, her hands clasped tightly. Like no time's passed. In Noah's room, Jamal knelt beside the magnetic tile fort, his expression unreadable, as Noah explained its features. A launch pad, a control room, a tower for astronaut meetings. Ethan lingered in the doorway, watching Jamal nod with genuine interest, his fingers brushing the tiles as if touching a piece of his son's world. "This is impressive, buddy," Jamal said, his voice soft. But Ethan caught the flicker of something else in his eyes. Regret, maybe, or the weight of missed years. Later, when Noah ran to grab a drawing, Jamal turned to Maya, his charm giving way to vulnerability. "I messed up," he said quietly. "I wasn't ready back then. LA was supposed to be my big break. Gigs, studios, the whole dream. But it's empty without him." Maya's jaw tightened, her voice steel. "You left us, Jamal. You chose your dream over your son." Jamal winced, his hands spreading in a helpless gesture. "I know. I was young and stupid. Thought I'd find myself out there, but all I saw was guilt. I want to make it right now." His words were sincere, making Ethan pause, but Maya's eyes were unyielding. "Prove it," she said, her tone a challenge forged in years of broken promises. Ethan felt the moment's weight, the clash of Jamal's regret against Maya's guarded heart, with Noah caught in the middle. Harlem's street sounds filtered through the window. A street preacher's call, the laughter of kids playing tag, reminding Ethan of the community that had held Maya and Noah together. Jamal's return wasn't just a personal disruption, but a test of the life they'd built in this vibrant neighborhood. Noah bounded back, holding a drawing of a rocket ship labeled "Me and Daddy." Jamal took it, his smile faltering as he studied the image, perhaps seeing the gap between the boy's hope and his track record. "You're an artist, Noah," he said, his voice thick. Ethan caught Maya's glance, her eyes fierce and protective, and he knew she was bracing for the fallout. As Jamal and Noah returned to the living room, Ethan felt the apartment shrink, the air charged with unspoken questions. "Should we talk about the weekend?" Maya asked, her voice brisk, shifting to practicalities, pickup times, Noah's inhaler, his favorite snacks. Jamal nodded, promising to have Noah back by Sunday evening, but Ethan heard the echo of past promises in his tone, smooth but unsteady. Noah hugged his father, his joy fragile, and Ethan felt a surge of resolve. "Take care of him," Maya said as Jamal lifted Noah's bag. Her words were a warning wrapped in politeness. Jamal met her gaze, his expression earnest but haunted. "I will." As the door closed behind them, Maya leaned against it, her hands shaking slightly. Ethan moved to her side, his voice soft. "You okay?" She shook her head, her braided bun loosening. "I want to believe him, but I can't. Not yet." Harlem's evening lights flickered outside, casting shadows across the room, and Ethan knew this was only the beginning of a storm that could either break their fragile bond or make it stronger. The Harlem sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft purple glow over Maya's apartment as Ethan sat on the couch, the silence heavy with anticipation. The living room, usually alive with Noah's chatter and the clatter of his toy spaceships, felt hollow without him. Maya stood by the window, her burgundy scarf draped loosely over her shoulders, her braided hair catching the fading light. She checked her phone for the third time in 10 minutes, her fingers restless. Jamal had taken Noah for the weekend, their first extended time together in years, and the apartment's quiet was a stark contrast to Harlem's evening hum outside. Street vendors packing up, a gospel choir's rehearsal drifting from a nearby church. Ethan shifted, his sweater slightly rumpled from an earlier attempt to tidy Noah's toys. "He'll be okay," he said, more to himself than to Maya, but his voice lacked conviction. Maya's gaze remained fixed on the street below, where the glow of streetlights illuminated couples strolling home. "I hope so," she murmured, her voice tight. "But I know Jamal. He's all charm until it's time to show up." Ethan wanted to reassure her and promise Noah's joy at seeing his father would hold, but the memory of Maya's fear, her warning about Jamal's history, kept him silent. Instead, he joined her at the window, the city's rhythm a faint comfort against their shared unease. Sunday evening arrived with a knock at the door, sharp and punctual. Maya opened it to find Noah, his stuffed lion clutched tightly, his eyes downcast. Jamal stood behind him, his smile strained, his leather jacket creased from travel. "Hey," he said, his voice too bright. "We had a great time, didn't we, buddy?" Noah nodded, but his usual spark was gone, replaced by a careful quietness that tightened Ethan's chest. Maya knelt, helping Noah out of his jacket, her hands gentle but trembling. "How was your weekend, sweetheart?" she asked, her tone forced cheerful. Noah shrugged, his voice flat. "Good. We swam, had pancakes." He clutched his lion closer, avoiding her gaze. Ethan watched, his heart sinking. This wasn't the Noah who'd left, bubbling with excitement about his dad. "Can I go to my room?" Noah asked, his sneakers scuffing the floor. Maya nodded, her face pale. "I'll check on you in a bit." As Noah disappeared down the hallway, Maya turned to Jamal, her eyes sharp. "What happened?" Jamal shifted, his charm faltering. "Nothing happened. We had fun. Pool, diner, like I promised." But his tone was defensive, and Ethan caught the flicker of guilt in his eyes. "He's quiet," Maya pressed, her voice low but fierce. "He doesn't get like this unless something's wrong." Jamal spread his hands, helpless. "Look, I had to take a call for a gig Saturday night. Left him with the hotel sitter for a couple of hours. He was fine." Maya's jaw clenched, her fingers curling into fists. "You left him with a stranger? After promising him your time?" Jamal sighed, his dreadlocks swaying as he shook his head. "It was a big opportunity, Maya. I'm trying to build something for him, too." She stepped closer, her voice steel. He's 5. He doesn't care about your opportunities. He needed you. Jamal's gaze dropped, and he muttered, "I'll do better next time," before slipping out the door. Maya sank onto the couch, her hands covering her face. Ethan sat beside her, the apartment's silence deafening against Harlem's distant pulse. A car horn. A burst of laughter from a passing group. "He's shutting down," she whispered, her voice breaking. Just like before, when Jamal left for LA. He'd wait by the window, asking when Daddy was coming back. Ethan's throat tightened, memories of childhood surfacing, waiting for a father who never showed. He offered to let me talk to him, but Maya shook her head. "He needs me first." Through the thin walls, Ethan heard Maya's gentle voice in Noah's room. Her questions met with monosyllabic replies. "Did you have fun with Daddy?" she asked. "Yeah," Noah mumbled. "Was everything okay?" A pause, then, "It was fine." After 20 minutes, Maya returned, her eyes red-rimmed. "She said he won't know what's wrong," sinking beside Ethan. "But he told me Jamal promised a zoo trip, then left him for a meeting." Noah sat in a hotel room, watching cartoons with someone he didn't know. Her voice cracked, and Ethan felt anger at Jamal and the unfairness of Noah's hurt. Harlem's streetlights flickered outside, casting shadows across the room, a reminder of the community that had held Maya and Noah through tough times. Ethan took her hand, his grip steady. "He's strong, and Maya likes you." She shook her head, tears spilling. "I should have known." I let him go, thinking Jamal might have changed. Ethan wanted to fix it, to erase Noah's pain, but he knew words weren't enough. "What can I do?" he asked. Maya's gaze met his, raw and vulnerable. "Just be here. That's more than Jamal's ever done." Later, as Maya coaxed Noah through his bedtime routine, Ethan stood in the kitchen, staring at the fridge covered in Noah's drawings. One of a rocket ship labeled "Me, Mama, and Ethan." The image, so full of hope, contrasted with the boy's withdrawal, and Ethan's heart ached. When Maya returned, her shoulders slumped, she said, "He didn't want a story tonight. He always wants a story." Ethan pulled her into a hug, feeling her tremble. "We'll get through this," he said, the words a promise to himself as much as to her. Outside, Harlem's night hummed on, resilient and alive. But inside, the weight of Noah's heartbreak hung heavy, a challenge to the family they were trying to build. The hum of Harlem's morning market filtered through the open window of Ethan's Soho apartment, starkly contrasting the sterile quiet of his minimalist space. The Saturday sun spilled across his desk, illuminating a laptop screen filled with lines of code. But Ethan's mind was elsewhere. Noah's withdrawn silence after his weekend with Jamal haunted him, as did Maya's tear-streaked face, her fear that she'd failed to protect her son. Ethan's sweater hung loose on his frame, his unshaven jaw a testament to sleepless nights wrestling with doubt. Was he enough for Noah, a boy scarred by a father's broken promises? Could he be the steady presence Maya needed? Or was he just another variable in a life already too complicated? Ethan closed his laptop, the glow of Harlem's energy beckoning him. He grabbed his jacket and headed to a cafe on 125th Street, where the aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the rhythm of a street drummer outside. His sister, Sarah, was waiting at a corner table, her hazel eyes narrowing as she took in his disheveled state. She said, "You look like you haven't slept in a week," pushing a latte toward him. Ethan managed a weak smile, his fingers tracing the cup's edge. "It's been rough." Noah came back from his weekend with Jamal. Different, quiet, like he's locking something away. Maya's a wreck, blaming herself. Sarah leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "And you? What's got you so twisted up?" Ethan exhaled, The cafe's bustle. Baristas calling orders. A couple laughing over pastries, fading into the background. I keep thinking about my dad, he admitted, his voice low. He'd make these big promises. Baseball games, camping trips, then bail for work or whatever excuse he had. I was 7 when he left for good, and I spent years wondering what I did wrong. Noah's going through that now, and I don't know if I'm the right guy to help him. What if I'm just another disappointment? The words spilled out, raw and unfiltered, exposing a fear he'd buried since childhood. Sarah sipped her coffee, her gaze steady. You're not Dad, Ethan. You're showing up, week after week, for a kid who's not even yours. That's not nothing. Ethan shook his head, his fingers tightening around the cup. But what if it's too much? Maya's scared of letting anyone close after Jamal. Noah's building walls faster than I can keep up. I'm good at fixing codes, Sarah, not hearts. The cafe's windows framed Harlem's vibrant street. Vendors selling handmade jewelry, kids weaving through the crowd with balloons. A reminder of the community that held Maya and Noah together. A world Ethan was only beginning to understand. Sarah leaned back, her expression thoughtful. You're not trying to replace Jamal. You're offering something different. Consistency, care. Noah sees that, even if Maya's too scared to admit it. Are you in this for real? Or will you let your ghosts scare you off? Ethan stared at the table, his mind flashing to Noah's gap-toothed grin, the way he'd trusted Ethan with his rocket ship drawings. He thought of Maya's laugh, rare but unguarded, like a melody he wanted to hear forever. His father's absence had taught him to guard his heart, to retreat into the safety of logic. But this messy, beautiful connection, was worth risking everything. A memory surfaced, sharp and vivid. His father's last visit, a rushed dinner at a diner, promises of a fishing trip that never happened. Ethan had been 9, staring out his bedroom window, waiting for a car that never came. Noah's quiet withdrawal mirrored that pain, and Ethan felt a surge of resolve, a fire kindling in his chest. I'm in, he said, his voice steady now. I don't know how to do this, Sarah, but I'm not walking away. Sarah smiled, a glint of pride in her eyes. Then show them, not with words but with actions. That's what families do. They show up, even when it's hard. Ethan left the cafe, the Harlem streets alive with possibility. He walked past a mural celebrating local jazz legends, the colors bold against the brownstone wall, and felt a shift within him. His doubt hadn't vanished, but it was no longer a barrier, but a challenge. He thought of Noah's fort, built with care and imagination, and Maya's cautious trust, a fragile bridge he was determined to cross. He bought a set of foam blocks at a nearby toy shop, envisioning a new project with Noah to rebuild the boy's spark. The shop clerk, a woman with a warm smile, nodded knowingly. For a special kid? She asked. Ethan grinned. The best. Back at his apartment, Ethan sat on his couch, the foam blocks beside him, and texted Maya. Can I come by tomorrow? Got something for Noah. Her reply was quick. He'd like that. So would I. The words, simple but heavy with meaning, settled in his chest. Harlem's distant hum, a car horn, a burst of laughter, filtered through his window, a reminder that he was part of something bigger now. Ethan's fear of failing Noah, of not being enough, still lingered. But Sarah's words echoed. Show them. He would, not just for Noah and Maya, but for himself, to prove he could be the man who stayed, no matter what storms came next. The Harlem afternoon buzzed with the rhythm of a street festival, the air thick with the scent of jerk chicken and the pulse of a steel drum band echoing down 125th Street. Inside Maya's apartment, however, a heavy silence clung to the walls, broken only by the soft clinking of dishes as Ethan washed them in the kitchen. Maya sat at the dining table, her burgundy scarf crumpled beside her, her braided hair loose. Washama system, slightly loosened in its bun. Her phone lay face up, its screen dark but ominous, as if it held the weight of the news she'd just received. Noah was playing quietly with his stuffed lion in his room, his usual chatter subdued since his weekend with Jamal. Ethan dried his hands, his sweater sleeves damp, his heart heavy with the tension that had settled over them since Jamal's call an hour ago. Maya's phone buzzed, and she flinched, her fingers hesitating before picking it up. "It's him," she said, her voice flat. Ethan set the dish towel down, his stomach knotting. "What now?" She read the text, her jaw tightening. "He's canceling this weekend. Says there's a family emergency in LA, and he's flying back." Her voice was laced with bitter resignation, and Ethan felt a surge of anger, not just at Jamal, but at the unfairness of Noah's repeated disappointment. Ethan said he couldn't keep doing this, and his voice was sharper than intended. Maya's eyes met his, raw with pain. He just did. Ethan moved to her side, the festival's distant music filtering through the window, a lively contrast to the apartment's gloom. "What did he say exactly?" he asked, needing to understand the depth of the betrayal. Maya scrolled through the message, her hand trembling. "Something about his girlfriend's family. He says it's not his fault, that he's trying." She laughed, a hollow sound. Trying. Like that means anything to Noah. Ethan's mind flashed to Noah's quiet return from the weekend. His spark dimmed, and he felt a cold fury settle in his chest. "He's 5, Ethan said. "He doesn't need trying. He needs his dad to show up." Maya set the phone down, her fingers curling into fists. "I have to tell Noah. How do I explain this again? That his father's promises are just words?" Her voice broke, and Ethan knelt beside her, taking her hands. They were cold, trembling, and he squeezed them gently. He said, "You don't explain it." His voice steady despite his turmoil. "You hold him and let him know he's enough for you. For us." Maya's eyes searched his, a flicker of hope battling her fear. "Us," she whispered, as if testing the word. Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. "Yeah, us." The apartment's cozy chaos. Crayon drawings, toy spaceships, a half-built fort of blankets, felt like a sanctuary under siege. Ethan stood, pulling Maya to her feet, and they walked to Noah's room. The boy sat cross-legged on the floor, his lion tucked against him, a picture book open but unread. "Hey, buddy," Maya said, kneeling beside him, her voice gentle but strained. Noah looked up, his eyes wary, as if he sensed the news. "Is Daddy coming?" he asked, his voice small. Maya's breath caught, and Ethan felt his throat tighten. "Not this weekend, sweetheart," she said, smoothing his hair. He had to go back to LA for something important. Noah's gaze dropped to his book, his small shoulders hunching. "Okay," he said, the word flat, devoid of the spark Ethan had come to love. Maya hugged him, her eyes glistening as she met Ethan's gaze over Noah's head. "She said we're going to have fun anyway," her voice forcing cheer. "Ethan could take us to the park." Noah's nod was barely perceptible, and Ethan's heart ached at the boy's guarded silence, a shield against the pain of another broken promise. Maya sank onto the couch in the living room, her hands covering her face. Ethan sat beside her, the festival's music now a faint pulse through the window, Harlem's vibrancy a distant echo. "I can't keep watching him get hurt," she said, her voice muffled. "Whenever Jamal returns, he takes a piece of Noah with him when he leaves." Ethan's anger flared, but he kept it in check, his hand resting on her shoulder. Then we make sure Noah knows we're here, no matter what. We can't control Jamal, but we can control what we do. Maya lowered her hands, her eyes red but fierce. What if it's not enough? What if I'm not enough? Ethan took her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. You're more than enough. You've built a home, a life, in this crazy, beautiful city. And Noah, he's strong because of you. I'm here because of you both. Her gaze softened, a tear escaping, and she leaned into him, her forehead against his. I'm scared, Ethan, she whispered, but I'm glad you're here. Harlem's evening lights flickered outside, casting a warm glow over the room, and Ethan held her tighter, their shared resolve a bulwark against the storm of Jamal's failure. The morning sun filtered through the towering windows of the American Museum of Natural History, casting a golden glow over the towering T-Rex skeleton that loomed in the fossil hall. Harlem's weekend energy pulsed outside, with street vendors hawking sweet potato pies and a distant jazz band warming up for a festival. Ethan stood beside Noah, his sweater slightly rumpled, a backpack slung over one shoulder filled with snacks, and Noah's stuffed lion. Maya lingered nearby, her burgundy scarf loose around her neck, her braided hair catching the light as she watched Noah with a cautious hope. The museum trip was Ethan's idea, a deliberate attempt to rekindle Noah's spark after Jamal's latest cancellation, a wound still fresh from the previous week. Noah's eyes widened as he gazed up at the dinosaur, his small hand gripping Ethan's. It's huge, he whispered, his voice tinged with awe, the first genuine excitement Ethan had heard since Jamal's abrupt departure. Think it could eat a spaceship? Ethan asked, crouching to Noah's level, his tone playful but careful. Noah tilted his head, considering. Maybe, but my spaceship's got lasers. A faint smile broke through, and Ethan felt a surge of relief, a crack in the boy's guarded shell. Maya's gaze softened, her fingers relaxing around her purse, but her eyes still held the shadow of worry, a mother's instinct to protect her son from further hurt. The museum's halls buzzed with families, their chatter echoing off the high ceilings, a microcosm of Harlem's communal spirit. Ethan guided Noah through the exhibits, pausing at a display of Triceratops bones. He said, "Look, buddy, they had armor like your rocket ship castle," pointing to the bony plates. Noah nodded, his curiosity stirring, and he began asking questions about dinosaurs, spaceships, and whether T-Rexes could live on the moon. Ethan answered with mock seriousness, weaving stories of prehistoric astronauts, drawing giggles from Noah that felt like a small victory. Maya trailed behind, her smile growing, though she remained quiet, as if giving Noah space to heal. Noah sat between them on a quiet bench near the meteorite exhibit, clutching a museum guidebook. His voice dropped, barely audible over the hum of visitors. He said Daddy didn't want me this weekend, his eyes fixed on the floor. Ethan's heart clenched, and he exchanged glances with Maya, who looked ready to speak but hesitated. Ethan knelt, meeting Noah's gaze. I'm here, Noah, right now, and always. Want to tell me what happened? Noah's lip trembled, and he clutched his lion tighter. He said we'd go to the zoo, but he had to leave. Said he'd come back, but he always says that. Maya's hand covered her mouth, her eyes glistening, but Ethan focused on Noah. That's hard, buddy, he said, his voice steady. It's okay to feel sad about that. But you know what? You've got a mom who loves you more than anything. And I'm here too, building rocket ships and dinosaur forts with you. Noah's eyes lifted, searching Ethan's face. You won't leave? The question, so heavy yet straightforward, hit Ethan like a wave. Not a chance, he said, ruffling Noah's hair. "We're a team." Noah's nod was slight but firm, a spark of trust reignited. They left the museum as the afternoon sun bathed Harlem warmly, heading to Maya's apartment. Ethan spread out a blanket in the living room, and Noah eagerly unpacked the magnetic tiles, his enthusiasm returning. Noah said, "Let's make a safe place," his voice brighter, like a fort where nobody leaves. Ethan and Maya exchanged a look, her eyes softening with gratitude. They built together, Noah directing with newfound energy, creating a sprawling structure with towers and bridges. He declared that this is our base, placing a paper figure of Ethan inside, next to those of himself and Maya. "It's where we stay together." Maya knelt beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. "It's perfect, sweetheart," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Ethan added a final tile, his heart full. "This fort's unbreakable," he said, meeting Noah's eyes. The boy grinned, his gap-toothed smile a beacon of healing. Harlem's evening sounds drifted through the window, a street performer's saxophone, laughter from a passing group, wrapping them in the neighborhood's embrace. Maya's fingers brushed Ethan's, a silent thank you, and he felt the weight of their shared promise to be Noah's safe place, no matter what. As they cleaned up, Noah hugged Ethan tightly, his small arms fierce. "Thanks for the dinosaurs," he said, his voice muffled against Ethan's sweater. Ethan hugged him back, his throat tight. "Anytime, buddy." Maya watched, her smile steady now, the fear in her eyes giving way to hope. The fort stood proudly on the coffee table, a symbol of Noah's resilience and their growing bond, a testament to a family being built piece by piece in the heart of Harlem. The golden light of a Harlem evening spilled through Maya's apartment window, painting the living room in a warm, hopeful glow. The faint strains of a jazz quartet drifted from a nearby club, mingling with the clatter of pots and the laughter that filled the space. Ethan stood at the kitchen counter, his sweater dusted with flour, a smudge of tomato sauce on his cheek as he stirred a pot of homemade pasta sauce. Noah perched on a stool, his stuffed lion tucked beside him, his small hands shaping dough into uneven noodles under Ethan's guidance. Maya leaned against the counter, her burgundy scarf draped over a chair, her braided hair loose, and framing a smile that held none of the caution Ethan had once seen. 6 months had passed since that chaotic Valentine's Day dinner, and their lives had woven together, a tapestry of choice and care. The apartment was alive with the chaos of family, crayon drawings pinned to the fridge, a half-built rocket ship of magnetic tiles on the coffee table, a stack of library books from the Schomburg Center. Harlem's pulse beat outside, with street vendors calling out offers of roasted peanuts and a group of teens practicing a dance routine under streetlights. Ethan glanced at Noah, who was now narrating a story about his noodles becoming space worms for astronauts. Ethan said they'll need extra sauce, grinning, and Noah giggled, flicking flour at him. Maya laughed. A rich, unguarded sound warmed Ethan more than the stove's heat. She said you two are a mess, but her eyes sparkled joyfully. The evening had started with a plan. Dinner to celebrate Noah's latest kindergarten masterpiece, a drawing of their family fort now proudly displayed on the fridge. But it was more than that, a quiet affirmation of the life they were building. Ethan had suggested making pasta from scratch, a nod to a memory of his mother teaching him as a child, a rare moment of connection before his father's absence shadowed their home. Noah had jumped at the idea, and Maya, initially skeptical, had joined in, her laughter filling the gaps where doubt once lived. "You're overcomplicating it," she teased, as Ethan measured flour scientifically. "Sometimes you knead and go." Noah nodded sagely. "Yeah, Ethan, don't think too hard." The moment was interrupted by Maya's phone buzzing, the screen lighting up with Jamal's name. Ethan's stomach tightened, but Maya's expression remained calm, starkly contrasting the fear that once gripped her at his calls. She answered, her voice steady. "Hey, Jamal." Noah glanced up, his hands pausing in the dough, but his face showed no trace of the anxious hope that once defined these moments. Ethan listened as Maya spoke, her tone polite but firm. "This weekend? No, we've got plans. You'll need to reschedule." She hung up, her gaze meeting Ethan's, a silent understanding passing between them. Jamal had canceled another visit, his excuses as predictable as Harlem's evening breeze, but Noah's world didn't falter this time. Noah returned to his noodles, humming softly. "Ethan, can we make a fort after dinner? The biggest one ever?" Ethan ruffled his hair, his heart full. "Bigger than last week's?" "That's a challenge." Noah grinned, his gap-toothed smile a beacon of resilience. Maya moved to the coffee table, where the magnetic tile fort stood, a testament to their Saturdays together. Nestled in its highest tower was a small paper folded into a square, a relic from a month ago, when Ethan had poured his heart into 3 words. "Choose us, please." She unfolded it now, her fingers tracing the ink, her eyes glistening but steady. "You did this," she said, her voice soft. "You gave him back his spark." Ethan set down the spoon, crossing to her side. "We did it," he corrected, his hand finding hers. "You, me, Noah. We're a team." She leaned into him, her forehead against his, and for a moment, the world was just them, the kitchen's warmth, and Noah's humming. Harlem's jazz pulsed outside, a reminder of the community that had cradled their journey, from the Schomburg's story times to the park's vibrant chaos. "I was scared," Maya admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "After Jamal, I thought trust was a risk I couldn't take. But you showed up every day, even when it was messy." Noah bounded over, flour in his hair, holding a misshapen noodle like a trophy. "Mama, look, it's a space worm." Maya laughed, pulling him into a hug. "Perfect, sweetheart." She looked at Ethan, her eyes bright with something new. Certainty. "Noah, what do you say we make Ethan's visits official? Like, does he stay with us longer?" Noah's face lit up, his arms wrapping around Ethan's legs. "Like all the time?" "Yes!" Ethan's throat tightened, the weight of their trust a gift he hadn't known he needed. "I'd like that," he said, his voice thick, more than anything. As they sat down to eat, the table crowded with plates of lumpy noodles and sauce, Ethan felt a sense of home he'd never known. Harlem's lights twinkled outside, the city's rhythm a heartbeat for their chosen family. Noah chattered about his fort plans. Maya asked about his day, and Ethan listened, his heart full. He'd been searching for this, not just love, but belonging, built choice by choice, in a place that had taught him to stay. When Jamal called again weeks later, Noah barely looked up, too busy building a rocket with Ethan. "We're good," he said, and Maya smiled, her hand in Ethan's, their fort stronger than ever.